What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/ProRevenge. This story's called, "An entitled man tries to skip a 1.5 hour long queue and threatens me. I make sure he gets arrested." Sorry for the post being so long. Also, English is not my first language, so sorry if I mix something up. This happened to me a month ago. A little backstory. This year, I graduated high school and got accepted to a good university in the capital. My girlfriend, my friend from middle school, and we all study in the capital, moved into a small apartment that was property of a friend's parents. One day, my girlfriend and I decided to go to a shopping mall to get some kitchen stuff, a spatula, a grater, etc., and buy ourselves city cards. Basically a card that lets you use all of the city transit, buses, trams, and subway. We chose a specific mall, which had both a city transit office and a small IKEA. When we arrived, the queue to said office was massive, at least an hour of waiting, and so we decided that I'll wait in line while girlfriend does shopping. After half an hour, girlfriend comes back and we still have to wait at least another 30 minutes. 15 minutes later, and we are fourth in line. Then, entitled man, an average 40-something balding male, comes onto the scene. He notices the queue, I already knew he wasn't having it by the look on his face, and simply stands in front of assertive woman who is the first in line. We had at least 1 meter long gaps between each other due to Brovid, and he just stands there like it's nothing. The assertive woman calmly asks him to go to the end of the line, to which he replied, "I just have one thing I need to pick up. It won't take longer than 5 minutes. A small argument between the two continued for a while, and it ended up with the lady gaining back her first spot in line and entitled man occupying the second spot. Now, standing between entitled man was Shy Man. He tried to get in front of entitled man, but just couldn't do so. After entitled man started being aggressive, Shy Man backed out. Seeing that Shy Man was not able to stand his ground, I decided to give him a helping hand. I came close to entitled man and started a conversation that went somewhere along these lines. "Excuse me, sir, there's a line here. Please respect others and move to the end of the line."
"No, it'll be 3 to 5 minutes and I'm gone. What do you not understand?"
"Sir, do you not realize everyone in this line is waiting for a 5-minute service? I was standing here for 40 minutes, and I doubt it'll take longer than 5 minutes for me as well."
"I don't care. I've got crap to do."
Then he faces away from me, so I come right in front of his face. "So you just come here not giving a crap, waiting for an opportunity to skip the frickin' line?"
"Yes, step off."
He faces away from me once again. At this point, I knew conversation was going nowhere, so I just stood in front of him, being the first in line now.
"So now you're skipping too, you little crap?"
I didn't reply and just waited for assertive woman to finish her business. When she finishes, me and entitled man literally race to the counter. I won and said to the lady behind the counter, "Excuse me, this man is skipping the line and is generally disrespectful to the others. Could you please not service him?" The worker nods and asks who is next in line, to which I point at Shy Man. Then I came back to my spot in line where girlfriend was standing. Entitled man tried his luck skipping the line once more. Thankfully, the worker knew what was the right thing to do and ignored the entitled man like he wasn't even there. Entitled man realized his defeat, looked at me and said,
"See you outside, you little crap,"
and gave me a middle finger. I won. It felt so good sending that guy home with nothing. But after a little while, I realized he might be serious with the
"See you outside."
I actually felt scared for a second. As a 177 centimeter, 75 kilogram guy, 5'10", 165 pounds for fellow Americans, I'm not much of a fighter to say the least. Looking for a way to protect myself and my girlfriend, I went and bought a little pepper spray, legal to carry without any permission where I live, as well as notified a guard that a man had told me he will be waiting for me outside, possibly to hurt me. I made my way to the exit with the guard following me, unlocked the pepper spray in my pocket. If entitled man really wanted to settle this, I was ready. I exited the building. The guard stayed inside but was watching me through the glass doors. Lo and behold, entitled man is standing around the corner with his cap on, approaching me. I was so frightened I couldn't even thank straight. With my right hand already grasping the pepper spray, I took it out and sprayed him. Entitled man started screaming in pain and tried to retreat. I yelled at my girlfriend to stay away and then proceeded to spray some more for good measure. But this time, I was spraying his hoodie, so it didn't do much. Next thing I know, the guard is tackling entitled man to the ground and calling for support over his walkie-talkie. He also ordered me to stay where I was. After what felt like an eternity, 3 other guards come out of the mall. 2 of them helped strangle entitled man, who was refusing to forfeit, and one of them asked me to come with him. We were taken to the guard's office. Police was called. By that point, entitled man had surrendered. He was sitting restrained in cuffs. The police arrived extremely quickly, less than 5 minutes, and questioned the guards, examining both my and entitled man's ID cards. They went on to review surveillance footage, came back and told me they would no longer need my assistance. One officer also warned me that if I'm threatened again, I should call the police in the first place and that I'm not exactly allowed to pepper spray people who haven't even touched me. I agreed, thanked them, and left the room. I then called my girlfriend because she was nowhere to be seen. Turns out she went to the toilet. As I was waiting for her, entitled man comes out of the guard's room, handcuffed, with 2 police officers grasping each of his arms and leading him outside. Oh man, did that sight put a smile on my face. I then went on with my day. Yo, be careful using pepper spray in an enclosed space because you will pepper spray yourself and everyone around you, okay? That stuff does not just stay in one spot, so be careful. But good on you for, protecting you and yours. Badass. Alright, this story's called Lay Off a Third of the Team and Expect Us to Work Harder? We'll see about that. So this happened sometime in the 2010s, somewhere in the UK. That's all I'm revealing. I worked for a medium-sized PLC in a small team that worked in the sales department getting quotes. I had previously worked in another team in a different department in the same company as well. This also includes elements of malicious compliance. I'll post this there as well. So to set the scene, the company had recently had some issues with regulators, and senior managers were either oblivious to the damage they were doing or didn't care. They were trying to save costs, but going about it all the wrong way. So my team consists of 6 team members and a manager. We were fairly busy and often helped out on other teams as well, and they would in turn help us. This is important for later. So we are all called into a meeting without warning and told that due to declining work tickets, they were laying 2 of us off. They did say 2 people were safe, the manager and his sidekick. They made us reapply for our jobs, including doing a test, following the letter of the law on redundancy, which had nothing to do with our roles. It also became apparent during the process that the company flat out lied, or at the very minimum, manipulated the data used to come up with their conclusion of failing ticket numbers. They dropped by 13 from year 1 to year 3. Bear in mind, it was a total of several thousand tickets a year. In the end, the company carried on, and 2 team members were removed and made redundant, one of which took a golden handshake, the other sued the company for various things, not really worthy of mention here, and won. After the dust settled, it also became apparent manager secured his sidekick's position despite him being the worst member of the teams in terms of work done and work quality. So in the weeks after, the entire team were too busy to help other teams, who then stopped helping us. So a huge backlog of tickets also built up. We also got threatened with disciplinary proceedings if our backlog didn't come down, but was also refused any overtime. During the process, we'd also been admonished for skipping steps and getting quotes, steps that often took a significant amount of time and served no purpose. So me and 2 others remaining, not including Sidekick, who had his nose so far up manager's rear it ended up coming out of his mouth, decided to do everything by the book, down to every last bullet point. This made the backlog of work even worse, but they couldn't say anything. One week, we had another meeting with HR, the sales director, and our manager to discuss the issues. We all calmly said, "We're sorry, but we have to follow the guidelines and rules laid down, and this is as fast as we can work." We were also asked to start helping out the other teams again, as we should be team players. Again, we said, "We're sorry, but we can't. Our workload is too high, and it's also not in our contracts that we have to do other teams' work." This went on for several months, and management still refused to believe we were overworked. When it was time for holidays, we realized they hadn't change the amount of people allowed off from 3, so we all booked holidays. They went abroad and I decided to visit family on the other end of the UK. Of course, when manager realized, a week before, he went nuts and another meeting with HR was called. We all calmly said, sorry, but we checked the rules for our team and 3 people out of 4, manager could do what he likes, can be off at any one time. And again, stood our ground and all went on leave for 2 weeks each. This caused even more chaos at work, as you can imagine. The sales director, after this, hatched a plan to get the Indian teams, we had offices in India and other offshore places, to be trained up by us and to help us. However, they demanded we fly out to spend weeks there training them. Again, we all refused, as it's not in our contracts to be trainers or have to work abroad. They ignored the fact that I didn't have a passport at this point, so poor old manager and his sidekick traveled out and trained them for weeks. Eventually, both stayed for over 2 months and failed to train them. We would send low-effort tickets to them and they would screw it up, and we simply said, sorry, to fix this, we need to do it again. So after 6 months, they gave that idea up entirely. After around a year or so of this, I'm being deliberately vague on timing, so please don't ask about it, we all decided to seek other employment after having found out we could not trust the company or the manager anymore, and we all found roles elsewhere within a week of each other. So all handed our 4 weeks notices, again to the letter of our employment contracts, and were due to all leave on the same day. Now, the female member of the team, who was a very learned person, and she revealed in all our contracts any documentation we create is ours, and we can do with it how we wish when we leave. So we hatch a plan. In the final week we are there, we move all our digital stuff to one location, including all my manuals and cheat sheets for my previous team. They both did the same with their previous positions within the company. On our final day, we bring in our own external drives and, with IT's help, download and removed all documentation and deleted the copies on the company systems. We all said our goodbyes and at the end of the day, quite happily told our manager what we had done. He exploded and demanded it back, and we calmly tell him, not according to the letter of our contracts, this, waving the drives at him, is ours, and we choose to remove it with us. We were later told by friends who remained that the sales director had a fit because now no one was doing quotes for him. Gladly, we all have had great new places and keep in touch. Hey, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, stick it to the stupid corporations. They're jerks. This story's called Deny Me Workers' Comp, Payback, Sarah, a bimbo. While reading the many pleasurable stories of ProRevenge, I was reminded of an act of ProRevenge from several years ago. It was a bad year for me, and the economy was not in great shape. Unemployment was fairly high. I had been working at a hardware store, but things went bad, and the owner sold everything and moved to Florida. I finally landed a job at a factory. It was crappy work involving putting zinc plating on metal parts. The owner was all about profit and had little regard for worker safety. Somehow he'd get a heads up whenever an OSHA inspector was coming. We'd bust ass cleaning, installing safety equipment on the machinery, etc. Once the inspector left, the safety equipment was put back in storage so there would be no wear and tear on it. I suffered through it all, as did my coworkers, because we were young, had no skills or experience, and jobs were scarce. One day, the piece of machinery I used, think something that looks like a concrete mixer, broke while I was loading it with the parts. The drum fell, hitting the bucket I was holding. The bucket was full of metal parts and weighed somewhere around 80 pounds when it was full. This caused me to lose my balance and ultimately injured my back. I tried to tough it out, but I was in a lot of pain. I go tell the foreman. She leaves the floor and finds the owner. She comes back about 10 minutes later and tells me to clock out and go home. I'm young and naive. I know nothing about workers' comp. I spent a few hundred of my own money going to a chiropractor and finally a doctor. When I go back to work a couple of days later, I am informed that I have been demoted due to my injury. I am relegated to being a custodian and my hourly pay had been cut. I held on for a few months before quitting and moving on. Here's the ProRevenge. It's a few years later. I have graduated college, got a good job, and am a little older and wiser. I come home from work and am watching the evening news. The state state I live in has an office similar to the EPA. The news station did one of those human interest stories and interviewed the man who had investigated the illegal environmental stuff. The story was about how he had dropped a bomb on a corporation that had been illegally dumping zinc waste. My ears perked up. You see, that company I used to work for used zinc to plate their little metal parts. Lots of zinc. My workstation with that drum, my job was to fill it with metal parts and then fill the drum with a zinc water acid slurry. Once the parts were plated, guess what the next part of my job was? I dumped the slurry into a trough, which led to a hole in the wall of the factory, which led to a ditch, which led to a creek. The factory had been illegally dumping zinc waste into a ditch. I immediately got in my car and drove there.
Aha!
The factory was still in business, and they were still dumping zinc waste into the creek. I took pictures. I took a video, and then I turned it all in, along with a notarized affidavit to that state inspector. The original fine was in excess of $100,000. They appealed, and I don't know what the settlement entailed. The business closed shortly after.
Sweet revenge!
Yeah, it goes to show that's what happens when you're scummy and dump zinc waste into ditches. Despicable behavior.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.